and as they try to suppress the opposition in the parliament, and as
Caribbean cousin, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Boss Lady will be extending the state of emergency. Is this the only option? Is this a country of dictatorship? Is this what you voted for? For a continuous state of emergency? 5 years? Madam Boss Lady, you are ruling with an iron fist. Madam Boss Lady, how long will you continue to rule with an iron fist? Trinidad and Tobago, the citizens, wake up. You're the only country in the entire world is currently under a state of emergency continuously. When will this come to an end? Madam Boss Lady, you are ruling with an iron fist. Trinidad and Tobago, you are leading down the road of dictatorship. Wake up, citizens. Wake up.
Trinidad and Tobago has to be the only country in the entire world that has a planned 5-year state of emergency. And these were the same people that were bashing the previous administration about calling a state of emergency in the first place. Take a look at this video, guys.
There are new allegations by the Attorney General that some mystical gang somewhere has been targeting members of the UNC government. Just for a reminder of where this whole charade started, it was last year, July 18th, they came out randomly and said that they had to call a state of emergency because somebody was targeting the AG's office with a rocket launcher. Bro had just taken office, didn't even pass a single bill yet, but somebody wanted him out of the picture, so they called an SOE and cancelled the Independence Day parade because they said it was a risk to have members of the government at the Independence Day parade. Mind you, remember the Independence Day parade is somewhere where all the armed forces are, but they weren't safe there. But to attend the Diwali celebrations a few months later, yeah, apparently they were safe at that point in time. To go to the CPL cricket matches, yeah, they were safe because they were in every crowd, everywhere, taking pictures amongst the crowd. There was no rocket launcher man nowhere to be found. The minister was up in Juve, out in the open, no rocket launcher guy. This was Padarat and Julian John was there as well at Hyatt Lime Fete, no rocket launcher guy. Just recently, they had a 1-year anniversary celebration, the entire cabinet at the same place at the same time. Nobody saw it as a threat, no rocket launcher guy. This is what the crowd looks like at one of those events. But they felt safer here than here with the armed forces. If you still believe these people, you are an idiot, unfollow me. I don't want you to follow. But time progressed and we forgot that they were flying in our faces. So here they come again, just a few months before the next Independence Day celebration, to say we are under threat once more. In case you all forgot, this current SOE started in March. They gave us a 15-day first, and then before that expired, they went and extended it. So it's ending in the middle of June. So if they go and they seek for a further 3 months, it's going to go past independence, and it's going to give them a next reason to say, well, our lives are in danger, so we can't go out any hot sun amongst the armed forces because, you know, it's a security risk. Everything else is okay, but that particular thing, nah, baby.
Imagine this is the country's only form of a savings plan, to cancel things like the Independence Day parade to save about $2 or $3 million, while companies are being given out contracts in sum of hundreds of millions of dollars to build houses for the wealthy. Makes sense? Let me know you guys in the comments down below.
Good evening. Today, Trinidad and Tobago finds itself once again under a state of emergency. No one can deny that crime has shaken public confidence and created deep concern across our nation. Citizens are frustrated, families are worried, communities want relief. Criminals must be caught, prosecuted, and punished. But emergency powers must target criminals, not weaken constitutional protections for the innocent. A state of emergency is not a crime plan. A state of emergency is a temporary legal mechanism. It is not policing reform. It is not intelligence reform. It is not prosecution reform. And it is certainly not a substitute for a long-term strategy. After almost a year in office, the country needs to know what structural changes have been made to reduce crime. When we examine the emergency powers regulations, there are serious constitutional concerns that every law-abiding citizen should understand. In certain cases under these regulations, the writ of habeas corpus is suspended. That means a citizen may be detained without immediate access to a judge to challenge that detention. Homes may be entered and searched without a warrant, without prior approval from a court. That means a police officer can enter your home based on suspicion alone, without first going before a judge. Speech deemed prejudicial to public safety may become an offense, including how citizens express opinions publicly or online. These are extraordinary powers, and extraordinary powers demand extraordinary safeguards. Protecting constitutional rights does not protect criminals. It protects innocent citizens from the misuse of power. Strong governments do not fear judicial oversight. Strong governments welcome it because accountability strengthens public confidence. It does not weaken it. We must therefore ask a simple question. If this is the crime strategy, what happens when the state of emergency ends? What permanent systems have been strengthened? What conviction rates have been improved? What networks have been dismantled? Crime will not be solved by repeatedly suspending normal legal safeguards. It will be solved by intelligence-led policing, stronger prosecution, securing our borders, and ensuring that cases result in convictions. We can fight crime decisively and still defend the Constitution. In fact, we must do both, because we cannot build national security by weakening constitutional security. Trinidad and Tobago deserves safety, and it deserves solutions that protect both our security and our Constitution. I thank you, and God bless.
I want to find out something. This current state of emergency that we are living through, you can recall why it was called? We were told that there were threats towards government official lives, and therefore we have to live in this state so the government or the police can have more powers to exert their authority to go after them, in addition to reducing crime. Has there been any arrest towards those persons who have been committing these threats that prompted the government to say, well, hey, we have to go into SOE? But what we are seeing is that the SOE is giving the police more powers to arrest a young lady who decides to demand better via the means of a peaceful protest. That's what we're living in at this point in time. I want to understand. Because if the SOE is ready to reduce crime, was there a riot in Port-au-Prince that prompted the riot squad to come out? I'm trying to understand it. Because up to this date, we don't know who pushed the threat, if they were arrested, but we know for a fact there's a young lady and a team of persons who demanding better. And the law was used to put them to the curb. Our day in court is coming. Pray for the attorneys and pray for the family that they have enough finances to even secure a senior counsel, and continue to pray for our country. Because I'm not too sure the Prime Minister is aware that the road that they want to send us down. Because the people no longer trust the institutions.
The state of emergency will remain in effect until midnight on Wednesday, June 17th, 2026. This clarification was issued by the Office of the Attorney General, which sought to refute social media reports claiming that the SOE was due to end today, June 3rd. The office explained that by legal notice, the President declared a state of public emergency in Trinidad and Tobago effective March 3rd, 2026. The SOE was initially valid for 15 days, expiring on March 17th. However, it was subsequently extended by a simple majority resolution in Parliament for a further 3-month period, which concludes on June 17th, 2026.
The state of emergency is set to be extended in Trinidad and Tobago for an additional 3 months, leading us closer towards the 2025-2026 budget review to be held in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, the real question is whether or not the state of emergency is actually proven to be effective in the reduction of crime and criminality in Trinidad and Tobago. And most importantly, all eyes are on the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, mainly 𝐒𝐿 when it comes to the actual crime plan in dealing with crime and criminality in Trinidad and Tobago. Many of you know that part of the people of Trinidad and Tobago voting out the People's National Movement and voting in the United National Congress is based off the crime fighting agenda that the United National Congress, mainly 𝐒𝐿 spoke about on the campaign trail. Now, at least this is the conversation from Penelope Beckles, the leader of the opposition, as well as members of the opposition, including former Prime Minister to the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, that is one-day Prime Minister Stuart Young. The question that they pose towards the government, at least today inside of the Parliament, when it comes to the extension of the SOE, is that it must be a last resort and it must never be used as the only crime plan or crime fighting mechanism by the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, 𝐒𝐿 did say that this is in no way the government's crime fighting agenda. However, the state of emergency was simply used because of the imminent threat from persons within the prison service against members of the state and the state in general. 𝐒𝐿 stated today and made it abundantly clear that the state of emergency, or the SOE, it is not a crime fighting agenda or a crime fighting plan by the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And she also outlined that the use of community policing is exactly what will be enrolled or rolled out in time to come and will be used as part of the government's agenda to fight crime and criminality in Trinidad and Tobago. Most importantly, the Prime Minister 𝐒𝐿 also alluded to the fact that state-funded state programs such as the CPEP, at least under the previous administration, has a lot to do with crime and criminality today, signaling gangs as well as the community gang leaders, or what they would have called back in the day community leaders, that would have escalated crime and criminality in Trinidad and Tobago. And obviously the Prime Minister today pointed fingers directly towards the opposition, who was formerly governing Trinidad and Tobago no longer than 3 months ago, and she would have stated that there are some key areas that the government is looking at, such as auditing the CPEP program as well as several other programs in Trinidad and Tobago that would have played a crucial role in the escalation of crime and criminality today. Now, the Prime Minister did again go over some of the crime fighting agendas, as well as enhancing the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and all of the arms of the state to particularly fight against crime and criminality in Trinidad and Tobago. While the Prime Minister did not go in depth as to how they plan to achieve said agenda or roll out said agenda, the Prime Minister did make reference to Parliament reopening in September. Now, the Prime Minister also did speak about the stand your ground, did speak about the stand your ground consultation confrontations that are happening across Trinidad and Tobago and widespread currently, with members of the government coming on the ground and listening and speaking to you and debating or taking information from you to bring towards the debate in September in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. The Prime Minister is asking that members of the public make it their civic duty to attend to these consultations and let your voice be heard in regards to fighting crime and criminality in Trinidad and Tobago. So, some things to expect. Expect the state of emergency to be extended for an additional 3 months in Trinidad and Tobago, giving the police service, the regiment and other armed forces additional powers to curtail any threat that they deem necessary against the state and state officials to keep you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, safe.
Trinidad is under a state of emergency right now. El Salvador was too. Their murder rate has collapsed, ours hasn't. Same tool, very different results. Why is that? This is Bukele. This is the president of El Salvador. And under his SOE, he gave police unlimited powers. Arrest without warrants, detain without charge. In 2 months, 33,000 people was locked up. Not just gang members, the entire network, lookouts and anybody associated with it. Extortion collapsed and gangs couldn't function. Trinidad and Tobago has been under emergency powers a lot in recent history. Arrest made, guns seized and operations running, but gang structures here have not collapsed. Why is that? 2 reasons. 1, Bukele controlled the parliament, the courts and the AG simultaneously. No opposition, no appeal. TNT still has functioning checks and balances. That limits the speed and scale that you could enforce on. 2, our crime has a whole different engine. El Salvador had street gangs running extortion racket. Trinidad and Tobago has transnational networks, arms trafficking and money laundering. You can't arrest your way out of that. The emergencies is failing massively in our country, just because it doesn't apply to our context. And experts on both sides are saying that emergency powers alone don't solve what's driving the crime. Till we tackle arms flow, money laundering and economic desperation, we're just managing the symptoms. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you think the SOE is working in Trinidad and Tobago, or do you think it has ever worked before in any former SOEs? Also like and follow as always.
Hello everyone, I'm Attorney Ronnie. Let's talk about your right to protest during the state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago. Using the actual words of the law that governs us right now, we are operating under the Emergency Powers Regulations of 2026. There is no curfew at this time, but these regulations do give the police wider powers than usual, and there are a few key provisions every demonstrator should understand before stepping out. The first is the speech provision. Regulation 11 says that no person shall try, whether orally or otherwise, to influence public opinion in a manner likely to be prejudicial to public safety. Listen carefully to those words. Public safety. The phrase public order used to appear there, but it was removed after a constitutional challenge because it was too broad. So peaceful political criticism, asking honest questions, and calling for transparency and due process are not the target. A genuine threat to public safety is. That is the line. The second is the power of arrest. Regulation 13 allows a police officer to arrest without a warrant anyone he suspects is acting or is about to act in a manner prejudicial to public safety or committing an offense against the regulations. And here is something important to know. If you are arrested under that power, you can be held for up to 48 hours for inquiries, and that can be extended up to 7 days, but only on the authority of a magistrate or a senior officer of the rank of assistant superintendent or above. The regulations also limit bail and the usual habeas corpus route in these cases. That is precisely why the smartest thing you can do is stay so clearly within the law that the question of arrest never arises. So, how do you protest lawfully and protect yourself? First, understand what a protected place really is. Under Regulation 7, a place is only a protected place if the Commissioner of Police has actually designated it by a notice displayed there or published in the Gazette. If a location has been designated, do not enter it without authority because you can be searched and removed. Second, put your notice in writing to the Commissioner of Police early and keep the reply. Notice is not the same as permission, but it is strong evidence of good faith. Third, keep the road and the pavement clear. Obstruction is its own separate offense under ordinary law, completely apart from the state of emergency. Stand single file. Stay off the carriageway. Fourth, keep your message focused on due process and a fair, transparent investigation. That is protected expression. Avoid anything that could be read as inciting unrest, because that is what brings Regulation 11 into play. Fifth, record calmly from a distance. comply with lawful directions. And note this, if a woman is to be searched, the regulations require that the search be done by another woman. And remember, the street is never your only tool. A pre-action letter, a constitutional motion in the High Court, a complaint to the Police Complaints Authority, a petition. These lawful channels often deliver more lasting accountability than any confrontation ever could. The bottom line is simple. The state of emergency narrows the space to protest. It does not erase it. Stay peaceful, stay off the road, stay away from any place the police have designated. Keep your focus on due process. That is how you make your voice heard lawfully and how you keep yourself and everyone standing beside you safe. Know your rights, use them wisely. This video is intended for educational purposes and should not be considered as legal advice.
Trinidad and Tobago is once again under a state of emergency, and this one is like no other one that we've seen before. The Emergency Powers Regulation 2026 Legal Notice 40 of 2026 is now in force. There's no curfew, but the powers granted to the states are sweeping. They affect social media, protests, search and seizure powers, detention, bail and potential freedom of movement within the country. This is the second state of emergency declared by Prime Minister 𝐒𝐿 since taking office in 2025. In practical terms, the country has now spent roughly 7 of the last 10 months under emergency powers. Let's break down what's happening and examine the economic implications of this. So what does this SOE actually do? First, let's start with social media and public speech. Under Section 11 of the regulation, it makes it an offense to influence public opinion in a manner likely to be prejudicial to public safety. As you can hear from the wording there, it's very, very broad and not specific. This does not explicitly mention social media, but it clearly applies to Facebook posts, TikTok videos like this, WhatsApp messages, public speeches, and organized protest messaging. Possessing a device like a phone or a laptop or a tablet with intent to facilitate such influence could also constitute as an offense. Under these laws, the police can arrest without a warrant, they can search your electronic device, and also they can restrict a person's association or communication with the public. Opposition leader Penelope Beckles argues that this criminalizes free expressions and risks domestic overreach, while the current government argues that it targets incitement and threats to public safety. The legal tension is obvious. Who decides when speech crosses the line? As the actual bill is very vague and it can be left open for interpretation. I hope that this does not turn out to be a situation where anybody on social media that talks bad or opposes the government is targeted by police. Secondly, protest and movement. Although the word protest did not specifically appear in the bill, the police still may be able to restrict who you associate with. They will also prohibit entry into designated protected places. They remove individuals from areas, and also they can impose curfews if they deem it necessary. Any public gathering would fall under scrutiny if the authorities believe that it influences the public's opinion in any prejudicial way. Thirdly, warrantless searches and arrests. The police and also the defense force, when called upon, may be able to enter premises without a warrant. They can use force if necessary. They can stop and search individuals, vehicles, or vessels. And also they can arrest individuals suspected of acting or about to act against public safety. This represents a temporary suspension of ordinary constitutional rights, yet again for citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Lastly, and probably the most constitutionally serious measure within the entire SOE is the act of preventative detention. The minister may order preventative detention, and under certain circumstances, bail may be denied, habeas corpus may not apply. I'll explain that in a second. And also judges may have limited jurisdiction. Habeas corpus comes from the Latin word "you shall have the body," and it's a fundamental legal procedure and constitutional right that allows detained individuals to challenge their confinement in court. This basically gives any human legal right to challenge why they are being detained while they are under the arrest of police officers within any country. Well, under this SOE, you do not have that. So basically, the police can detain you and you have no right to challenge that detainment. So now, why did the government say that the SOE was necessary? Well, the SOE was triggered by intelligence reporting and pointing to gang retaliation cycles, mass shootings, and also threat against security personnel. They have stated clearly that the SOE is a tool and she will use it whenever it's necessary. Political scientist 𝗦𝗣𝗥𝗏 says that the declaration was not surprising in the wake of recent violence, particularly on the West and Laventille's mass shooting. However, security expert 𝗬𝗏 warns that emergency powers suppress crime temporarily but do not eliminate criminal networks unless structural reform are embedded into the entire economy as a whole. Now let's shift from politics to economics and let's go through some of the economic implications of yet another SOE. Firstly, it affects investor confidence. Repeated SOEs and emergency declarations can signal to investors that there is institutional instability. It weakens in conventional police system and also governance uncertainty. For foreign direct investors, risk perspective increases when emergency powers become normalized. Capital flow responds to stability, not rhetoric or chaos. Secondly, it affects our tourism and also Tobago largely. This will affect, even though there are no curfews, just the phrase of state of emergency alone deters travelers from visiting. Travel advisories would shift towards operations would be more cautious and also insurance cost rises. For Tobago, which depends heavily on tourism, reputation spillover matters a lot. Thirdly, there's a major effect to small businesses, as we saw many times in previous state of emergencies. Under emergency environments, businesses may close earlier, consumer foot traffic declines, nighttime economic activity lessens, and also informal sector earnings decline. This affects mainly food establishment, bars, entertainments, and transport operators. Crime already suppresses commerce within Trinidad and Tobago, and emergency powers can compound and slow down the fares. Thirdly, this poses a big threat to our sovereign risk and borrowing costs. Financial markets monitor your governance patterns. If emergency rule becomes frequent, well then sovereign risk premiums can increase, borrowing costs may rise, and also international rating agencies may question the institutional resilience. As we see recently, we had to offer a 6.5 interest rate on our bonds, which is very high. And if we continue showing that we are unstable, that borrowing cost may raise even more. Here's the biggest one of them all. Is the economic trade-off worth it of the SOE? Because here's the central economic question. Unchecked crime, it reduces investment, productivity, labor participation, and also property values. And we know crime is a problem within Trinidad and Tobago and is affecting our business. But prolonged emergency governance may also reduce democratic confidence, investor perception of stability, and also institutional credibility. Question never is crime bad? As everybody agrees that the crime situation is ridiculous within Trinidad and Tobago. The real question is, does repeated emergency governance produce sustainable crime reduction? If homicide rates fall, prosecutions rise, and gang structures are dismantled, well then the SOE will be definitely justified its economic cost. If crime rebounds after the emergency cycle, then the country absorbs both the liberty cost and the economic cost without any structural improvements. So we might be ending off way worse than where we started from. Now Trinidad and Tobago is at a defining governance stance. The government says that decisive action saves lives. The opposition argues that the democracy of Trinidad and Tobago is being stretched. The public wants safety and the economy wants stability. Agency powers can suppress violence, but only long-term structural changes can bring about real change. And in economics, sustainability always beats short-term success. So leave your thoughts about the SOE within the comment section below. Will this one work out for us? We can only hope, and we can only back the government, and we can only hope that this works out better for us in Trinidad and Tobago. So like the video if you enjoyed and found it informative, and also follow us as we keep you updated about the economic impacts of what's going on within Trinidad and Tobago.
Kicks is kicks, eh? But we not laughing no more. Government will extend state of emergency. The government want to extend the SOE for 6 more months. They're going to Parliament on Friday to get a vote. Now they need a 3/5 majority to pass. The only thing this SOE preventing is protest. It's not preventing murders. It's not preventing robberies. It's not preventing anything else. The drug runners still running. Everybody still doing what they're doing. But at least they can't protest. Tell me we spend a whole year on that state of emergency. Yeah? Almost a whole 12 months, probably about 11, 12, because probably a little 2 months in between there where it didn't happen. But my point still is, a whole year, boy. I want to say nothing, but this was last year. This was 2024, right? This wasn't too far ago. So what I'm saying is, SOE a shameless act of political gimmickry. Wait is now. This can't be the crime plan. 6 more months can't be the crime plan now. This can't be it. Not even making sense no more. Or like intelligence that people would be making attempts against the government and officials. Alright, no scene. We take that. No independence, no problem. Normal. What's the problem now? What is the issue now that we get in the next 6 months? If all had intelligence last time, where's the intelligence now? 6 more months, boy? Nah, boy, some off, boy.
Trinidad and Tobago has been in a constant state of mourning since April 28 last year. There's been massive protest action happening consistently, from public servants to nurses to maxi taxi drivers to those in public who are against the extrajudicial killings. Instead of dealing with this directly, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago decides to list 15 places that are now no protest zones. In other words, out of sight, out of mind. And it's okay for you to go in the bush and protest as long as it doesn't happen in front of them and makes them look bad. The Independence Day parade celebrations last year cancelled because it said that the crime situation was out of control and the country was under a state of emergency. Keep in mind that we've been in a state of emergency since then, up till now. And in the same breath, they tell you that the country is safer than it's ever been. How are we to believe these people? The PM considers extending the state of emergency for yet another 3 months. And apparently it doesn't affect Indian arrival day celebrations. Because these 2 ministers apparently didn't get the memo. Somehow, it doesn't seem like everybody's winning. But in the wise words of this singer, wee wee, wee wee. Let me know you guys in the comments down below.
And as they try to suppress the opposition in the parliament, and as they pass laws and regulation to prevent the voices from being heard around the parliament, around the police headquarters, around the diplomatic center, around the DPP's office, around the Ministry of Finance, we are telling the government tonight that we are prepared to take to the streets, and we are starting here in the 𝐒𝐿, and we will go to every community in Trinidad and Tobago. We will go to every streets. We will march on the bus routes. We will march on the highways. We will march on the byways. We will go to every community. We will go in the east. We will go in the west. We will go in the north. We will go in the south. We will go in Central. We will go in Tobago. And we will prosecute you.
Prime Minister 𝐒𝐿 Passabi-Sessa said she found it necessary to call a state of emergency, as she would not stand idly by as a minority of armed individuals threaten the people of Trinidad and Tobago. She said for years as opposition leader, she asked the government to call a state of emergency, not as a political gimmick, but as a way of fighting back against the crime situation. Sure, 𝐒𝐿, sure. It didn't seem that way when your Homeland Security Minister, Roger Alexander, basically told the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to hold a strain and decided to arm wrestle on camera instead of facing that citizens of this country are dying. But how dare someone target key government officials? How dare they? We should shut down the country for that, right? Y'all go let me know what y'all think about this story.
So, Mr. Speaker, the short points are, in accordance with the Constitution that was very, very carefully crafted, for a last resort like a state of emergency, where our fundamental and entrenched constitutional rights are suspended for example, the right to bail, the right to free movement. Why is it under the regulations? Because they like to pride themselves on saying they don't cut and paste. Regulation 11. Why does this still exist? Because it does not conform with what we're being told is the reason for the state of emergency. Regulation 11 is statements prejudicial to public order. No person shall, A, endeavor whether orally or otherwise to influence public opinion in a manner likely to be prejudicial to public safety, or B, do any act or have any article in his possession with a view to making or facilitating the making of any such endeavor. Any lawyer trying to interpret that will know how broad it is. So orally, and in this day and age of social media, a citizen who is frustrated wants a vent and calls for people, for example, as was happening, come down to Woodford Square and let the government know that you don't agree with the state of emergency, or you don't want people to know what is, you agree with what is going on with the unfortunate geopolitical situation we have found ourselves smack bam in the middle of. The legal advice to that has to be, hey, careful you fall into an offense under the state of emergency and section 11. Because it is easy for that to be interpreted that you're influencing public opinion in a manner likely to be prejudicial to public safety.
Why is Trinidad under a state of emergency again in 2026? Because the British never wanted us united. On March 3rd, Prime Minister 𝐒𝐿 declared a state of emergency due to gang violence and mass shootings. But here's what they won't tell you. Trinidad's crime crisis has roots in colonial policies that deliberately divided Afro-Trinidadian and Indo-Trinidadian communities. After slavery ended in 1838, the British brought Indian indentured laborers to replace freed Africans on plantations. They kept both groups separate, gave them different jobs, different villages, different religions. They wanted competition, not unity. Fast forward to independence in 1962, and those divisions became political. Today, gang violence often falls along the same geographic and ethnic lines the British drew 180 years ago. Your ancestors were never enemies. The system made them that way, and it's still working. Comment your parish or region below. Follow for more Caribbean truth they don't teach you.
So I know the big words might tie up some of you all about this press conference. But essentially, what is being said is that it is not, the state of emergency is not just because of the amount of murders, but more so because of an impending war or an expected war between the gangs with high-powered automatic firearms. That is the reason that this state of emergency was called. Because if it is being said that it was called on the advice or the information brought forward by the TTPS, what it basically means is that the TTPS unable to control or manage this situation, and with any war to break out between these gangs and them with these high-powered automatic firearms, many persons, many innocent persons going to lose their life. So we look forward to see what is the plan or the strategy that the TTPS and by extension the government have in place, because if nothing is done at the end of this state of emergency, these criminals just coming back out normally. They could just wait. As a matter of fact, that's what the criminals and them saying now. They're saying here what's going on. The laws of the land have remained intact. So even if all they lock we up, or they come in with house without warrant and only lock we up for a month or 2 months or whatever, at the end of it, even if we was to be charged, when we go before the courts, the judge is his hands are tied. He have to abide by what is the law of the land, whatever is the laws on the books. He can't do nothing more than that. So we go just sit down with we guns and we go wait with time, and then the state of emergency go finish, and then we go come back out. That is the plan of the criminals. So I hope that the government and the TTPS have a good strategic plan of how to manage this situation, so that at the end of the state of emergency, we can have some sort of meaningful change. We go wait and see.
It's a very good morning from Kenya, East Africa. And guys, today's video, we are going to talk about the alleged extension of state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago. Today, we are going to talk about the entire situation, from how it began, how it went, and what is happening now. Because according to a clip that I have attached here, there is a possibility that the state of emergency that was to end this month on 17th is going to be extended for another 3 months. And I can tell you, Trinidadians are not silent at all. They are speaking out. They are having an opinion on this. They are discussing this. So today, and even some few months ago, when the state of emergency was first declared, they talked, and they are still talking up to now. So, guys, the state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago may be extended, not for some few hours, not for some few weeks, not for some few days, but for another 3 months. And I can tell you, as you heard in the clips, Trinidadians have a lot to say. Of course, you can see like majority of them oppose it, but of course we will not lack like some few of them who are going to support it. Anyway, there are questions that are being asked in all these clips. Is it really necessary, and when will this end? So in this video, we are looking at how we got into this state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago. Why is it that the state of emergency started or was initiated by the Prime Minister 𝐒𝐿 Prasad in the first place? So what really happened during the entire situation? Why is it that the latest extension is creating so much debate in the internet and even among the local people of Trinidadians, and in the bus park, in schools, in churches, everywhere? So guys, if we start from the beginning, several months ago, Trinidad and Tobago faced serious crime problems. I mean, not just crime problems, but violent crime was dominating the headlines of TNT media. And I can tell you that is not good news, because that would mean that they are going to discourage tourists and investors into their country. The murders were increasing, and community and the people of Trinidad were had this feeling of being unsafe. So many of them felt like criminals were becoming too powerful than the government, and there was this fear that was growing, pressure that was growing, and the government faced a lot of calls to act, not just to act, but to act very fast. So one day came in the decision by the Prime Minister 𝐒𝐿 Prasad that she's going to have a state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago. I can tell you that was an extraordinary measures, because she did not decide to add more police. She did not decide to arm more police, but to enforce a state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago. So this move was designed to give the security forces an additional power, and the message was very, very simple. Crime had become a national emergency by then, and of course extraordinary actions was needed in order for this to go down. And I can tell you that was a good move anyway, because they did not resort to shoot to kill method, but they resorted to enforce a state of emergency. So the people of Trinidad reacted. Some welcomed it, some felt like they were somehow relieved, and they believed that something had finally been done. Because, these people wanted a stronger action, stronger measures. They wanted more police, more military presence, more arrests, more control, and for them, public safety is their number one. But again, there was this argument that law-abiding citizens are deserved good protection, and if emergency measures help reduce crime, then that will be worth it. So at the end of the day, not everybody agreed to this state of emergency measures that were meant to curb criminal activities in Trinidad and Tobago. There are those that opposed it, and they actually brought out and raised some concerns, like immediately. For them, they were worried about civil liberties. They were worried about human rights. They were worried about how long emergency powers would remain in place. And they argued that emergencies should be temporary, should be short-term, limited, and it shouldn't be something that should become normal in the first place. So there were so much debate. The people of TNT giving out their opinions, how they feel, when they come out on social media to discuss this thing. Remember that at the end of the day, what happens is that they are actually telling the rest of the people and the government how they feel about this. So for them, they wanted freedom at the same time. They wanted protection of rights, and of course, this will continue to be a debate that will be discussed over and over. So from then, weeks passed, months passed, and of course, the government kept defending the measures that they have put in place. So what happened is that there were multiple arrests, operational increase, and security forces were conducted, like most of the time, like these raids. They already had information, and that is why they were conducting these raids. And of course, so many people, so many targets were targeted. So the government said that the pressure was being applied to criminal networks only, not law-abiding citizens. And they actually, the people of Trinidad and Tobago felt like, this is working, man, and they supported it. Of course, not everybody, because you see, these people, they believed that the authorities were disrupting gangs that were terrorizing the good people of Trinidad and Tobago. Disrupting criminal activities would actually make them to be weaker, and hence they are going to have a safer community. So those that opposed these particular measures, the state of emergency measures, as much as the government said that we have an evidence and we are acting and we are targeting criminal activities only and suspects. So for them, they wanted evidence, they wanted statistics, like from the moment the state of emergency was enforced legally, how many people have you captured and arrested? And they wanted numbers, they wanted proof that ordinary citizens were safe, because by them coming out with the numbers that, hey, this and this and this has been arrested, the people of TNT wanted to know that indeed these are criminals and not law-abiding citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. So as much as, one thing with human beings, like, even if you bring out one measure, they will never be satisfied with all of that. Of course, some were like, these arrests alone, they are not enough. We want a long-term solutions, which is better policing, better investigations, better opportunities for young people, stronger institutions. That is the nature of our human beings. and they believe that emergency powers alone cannot solve every problem. Then there is something interesting that happened, because the time came, and when this state of emergency was supposed to end, it did not end. Instead, there were discussions that they really needed to extend this state of emergency. And every time the expiration date nears or comes to an end, another debate started, like they should continue with the state of emergency. And of course, as much as the government keeps all the time like wanting to extend it, we are asking, has that particular goal of state of emergency achieved its purpose? I mean, does TNT really need that? I don't know what you think about that. Probably you could comment down below. Let us know what you think about this state of emergency issue in Trinidad and Tobago. But from our clips, you can see that 90% of them, they are not in agreement with it. They don't support that there should be a state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago. Anyway, I don't know, because I heard someone saying that this these criminal activities has been a threat to them and their families and their communities. And as much as we have this SOE still ongoing, these gangs are still active. And to them, they believe that they should just get this SOE out, because these measures has not been really been productive. And for them, they believed that the gang activity is going to be like finished like totally, but it's not like finished totally. Anyway, I don't know what to think about that, because ending that SOE prematurely could really be very risky. And I can tell you that as someone who does commentary videos of the Caribbean countries, I heard someone saying that, how long is this too long? How long is too long? Because when extraordinary measures stop being extraordinary, people start to ask questions of whether the country was becoming accustomed to emergency rule, because according to them, it was all about accountability and protecting democratic people and democratic norms. And their concern, according to them, was not only today's or rather recent decision, but a precedented creation of things that were going to help in the solving of this problem. So some few hours ago, then I see another clip that I also attached here, that allegedly there is a proposal that the state of emergency is going to be extended by another 3 months. And guess what? That particular state of emergency will officially be announced on 10th of June 2026. And I can tell you, I expect more and more Trinidadians to speak, to react, to air out their opinion. And I can't wait to share with you also, because that debate, it will never end. Because you see, one thing with state of emergency, it actually specifies like at what time should you be out of the streets of TNT. And of course, Trinidadians, for them, some of them, they still believe that if crime is a problem, I don't even to say that comment, because at the end of the day, security comes first for everybody. And if there is continued criminal activity, then the government should actually know how to deal with it and get it to end completely, because the country cannot remain in the state of emergency mode like for the rest of its life. People want a timeline of when it's going to exactly end and what the country would have achieved by them enforcing state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago. Then if you talk about the undecided people, they don't know whether to support this SOE or not. Because if you look at them, the undecided people, what they want is just safety, nothing else. They just want normalcy, nothing else. Because, you know, they also understand that crime is a problem, and they also understand that the concerns about prolonged state of emergency situation. So for them, they really want, you know, just normalcy, nothing else. Because if the country already achieved the purpose of state of emergency, the goal of first bringing state of emergency, then they should at least get rid of it, because the country needs to go back to normal. And also come up with statistics and report of everything, so that they can be able to understand. Anyway, I don't know what do you think. What do you think will happen after these 3 months that probably they are going to extend the state of emergency? Do you think that there will be another extension? And will the government declare victory after the end of a state of emergency? Because that is what people are waiting. They really want to know, like, what will be the outcome here. But the reality is that crime will remain to be one of the biggest concerns that is facing Trinidad and Tobago, and not only Trinidad and Tobago, but the entire world. And we can all agree on that, because according to these videos that we attached, you can clearly see that the disagreement is about the solution only, and about the balance between security and freedom, because balance is not that easy, and it's not that in TNT, but everywhere and anywhere in the world. So what makes this particular topic of ours today so emotional is that it affects real people. It affects families, communities, citizens, you know, because communities are being affected by violence. Citizens, they want to feel safe. And of course, yeah, people just want safety. Anyway, as we wait for the final decision, I can tell you the conversation continues. We are hopeful, some are worried, some are frustrated, some are supporting, some are opposing. And at the end of the day, Trinidad and Tobago will remain deeply engaged in this particular discussion. So here we are, a state of emergency that began as a response to a crime crisis, a measure that has already been extended multiple times. And now there is a proposal that for the next 3 months, we are also going to extend this thing. And of course, I don't know, do you think that this is necessary, or it's gone for too long? It has gone on like for too long. Anyway, according to the government, or in any government in the world, security remains the biggest priority of the country, and the people of TNT will continue to talk about their future. Anyway, I don't know what you think about that 3 months extension. Do you think that it will make a difference, or is Trinidad and Tobago ready for a different approach? Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'll really appreciate if you keep the conversation going on. So let me know if you actually support another extension, or you believe that it's time for the state of emergency to just end. Anyway, thank you so much for always coming back. I do appreciate your presence. I'll see you in the next video.